Have you thought about how draining people pleasing can be? How frustrating it is to constantly feel like we have to put other people's needs in front of our own, or to put our emotions aside, to ignore what our bodies are telling us in order to prioritize other people, to maybe feel like we have to show up a certain way online in order for people to like us. Maybe the fear of disappointing other people is so debilitating that we will do anything in order to avoid the feeling of disappointing someone else. Maybe we do this at work, where we're constantly, doing all the things, more going above and beyond in order to get our tasks done, even though our bodies are exhausted and we need to take a break. This is a pattern of people pleasing, of course, and it is a pattern I believe that most people struggle with to one degree or another. It's the behavior of putting our own needs, our own wants, our own preferences, our own feelings aside in order to please someone else, in order to conform, in order to do a good job. And this is a pattern that is so normalized in society that, we don't talk about how affected or how much it affects our lives, it affects our health, it affects our relationships, and most of all, it affects our relationship with ourselves, right? So in this video today, I'm going to go over where this people-pleasing pattern comes from, why it's so important to work with it, and how to actually work with it. So to start with, we have to understand where it comes from. And we're going to go over 4 places it comes from. Then we're going to go into 4 ways to work with it. Number 1 is understanding that people pleasing comes from a tribal need that we have. It's a survival mechanism from our ancient brains that we adapted thousands of years ago when we were living in tribal communities. And in order for us to survive and be safe in nature, we had to rely on the tribe. We had to belong to the tribe. If we were rejected by the tribe, if we were left by the tribe, the likelihood of us dying was very high. So in our brains, in our nervous systems, we've gained this adaptive fear response that rejection equals death. And when we feel that, then it's deep lodged within our ancient survival brain, even though right now in society, if we're rejected, it's not a big deal. It feels awful, but we're going to survive. We're not going to die, right? And I'm going to share a little bit of a personal story here where a couple of years ago, a certain huge societal issue came out and a certain solution for that problem was presented. For me personally, it was a clear no. I wasn't going to do the solution, and it was fine that other people did it, no problem. But for me, my body was just like a nope, not going to do it. And I was met with so much disappointment, so much disapproval, so much rejection from people around me, from people I loved. And it really brought up this primal pain of rejection that felt like death in my body. I don't have any other way of explaining it. It felt like death. And it was through meeting that I realized that I'm going to survive. And through meeting that I discovered that my body's no was more important than appeasing or conforming to what other people were telling me that I needed to do. It was where I gained probably some of the most, the strongest sense of self that I have ever felt. And we do this, so many of us, right? And it's a totally understandable thing that we do. I mean, needing to feel like we belong to our tribe and society, it's so primal and it's so understandable. However, we don't want to compromise our body's nose and what feels right and authentic to us so that we can conform, because again, it's not good for our health to put our needs aside in order to please other people. And when we do that, we end up feeling resentful. We end up feeling like we're not taking care of our energy, and we end up feeling really drained. Our nervous systems become overloaded because we're just not taking care of our own needs. And then we can go into the next place, that is very obvious place of where people pleasing comes from. It's how we learn to grow up, or how our childhood experiences affect our behaviors now as adults. If we experience conditional love from our parents, if we were told that being a nice girl or a nice boy, or a good girl or good boy, putting other people's needs in front of our own, maybe not even learning what our needs and what our emotions were, then we might have really adapted this sense of people pleasing, that I'm lovable if I show up in a certain way, and I can only show up in that way. If I show other parts of me that were rejected or were punished, that means that I'm not going to be safe. So therefore, I have to do the things that will please other people. I have to be nice, I have to be good, I have to be kind, I have to put other people's needs in front of my own. And I'm maybe disappointing other people, because if I disappoint other people, that means that I will maybe feel or be reminded of subconsciously of what it was like to disappoint my parents or caregivers or people around me. So understanding that our childhood experiences so much so really affects the way that we might show up now with people pleasing, whether it be in our romantic partners, at work, or even online, right? So understanding that is really good. And I'm going to get to how to start working with that on our own, because this is a pattern that I work with people the most, with my clients with. And it's really no wonder, because this has been a pattern that has been the most prevalent in my life that I've had to work with myself. So that was number 2, the looking at childhood experiences, maybe doing some shadow work and inner work around that, which I'll get to later on how to work with that with our inner child. Number 3 is understanding that people pleasing and people pleasing behaviors comes from cultural influences. It comes from feeling like society and culture expects it from us. It's kind of like this social expectation that we, in order to be a good citizen, we don't question authority. We don't question the societal or cultural norms. We do what other people do. It's kind of like that herd mentality a little bit, if you will. And that maybe even gender roles play a role in this, that women are supposed to be more caretaking maybe and put their needs aside, that's very normalized in society, right? And understanding that is also a very good thing or a very good reason to see that it's not just something that we're doing within ourselves, that it's something wrong with us. It's actually very normalized in society to feel like we have to be socially acceptable, and what those cultural norms, unwritten rules are, often go into people pleasing, right? So that's number 3. Number 4 is modern society. Or where people pleasing comes from very often modern society. And now I know I'm going super quick here, noticing my battery pack on my camera is running out. So I'm like, bup. So we're going to slow it down just a little bit. So societal expectation and the way social media works, the way that we are attached to our phones all the time, we're constantly available through our phone, right? We have the World Wide Web available to us at all times. Everyone is available to us at all times. And we're also becoming more seen online. Maybe we're posting stuff online, and that maybe creates like a lot of validation, and we receive a lot of approval for showing up a certain way, and we pay attention to subconsciously what gets approval and what doesn't. And maybe we without even realizing it, we're kind of like making ourselves more certain way in order to receive more of that approval. And if we're not careful, we might be deriving our sense of self-worth from other people's approval online. In addition to that, the availability that we're so available that we might feel like we constantly, if someone messages you, you have to respond right away. There's this urgency around social media, and that anyone can contact you at any time. And if someone has seen that you have left, or that you've seen their message, and you then might feel like, oh my God, I have to get back to them right away. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to make them feel like I'm ignoring them. And we might then feel super urgency, like I have to respond to every message as soon as possible. And what would happen if I didn't do that? What if I disappointed someone, right? And it's just a really kind of important thing to talk about, I think, because these things are so prevalent in society right now, and I think it's causing so much stress and anxiety even in us that we might not even realize. So like understanding that we might have some unconscious expectations for ourselves or for other people to be available to us at any time, and that's not necessarily a good expectation to have for ourselves or for other people. Right? So those are the 4 places that we'll find people-pleasing behaviors really kind of are cultivated, or where they come from. Tribal mentality and fear responses, adaptations from the past, early childhood experiences, conditional love from our parents, even though they probably didn't mean to do it, as so many parents didn't. They did what they could with what they had, right? But that might have created like a sense of we need to be a certain way in order to receive approval from other people, and we can only show certain sides of ourselves in that. And then the cultural influences, the cultural norms that we're not supposed to question authority or people around us. We're supposed to do what everyone else is doing, kind of unconsciously again. And like gender roles, women often feel the caretaking and it's so normalized that women put their needs aside in order to take care of other people. And that's how maybe we feel our sense of value and our sense of worth comes from. And then the last one, our societal modern experience of having phones available to us at all times, and social media, and how that affects our needing to show up in a certain way in order to get validation and approval, and seeking maybe that as well. So how do we work with this, right? Like number 1 that I always go into with my clients is to start paying really attention to our patterns from childhood. What did our inner child learn to do? Who did we learn to be in order to receive approval from adults or from caretakers around us? Did we have to be super nice? Did we have to sit really still and kind of push away and repress our bodily needs to move around, or to express our anger, or to say no? How much did we repress parts of ourselves in order to be lovable, in order for our parents to like us and not punish us? Who did we have to be in order to receive love? And who did we have to be in order to avoid punishment? In psychology, we have our behaviors are very much shaped for looking for pleasure and looking for love, and also the opposite of how do we avoid punishment and pain. So seeing that within ourselves, we'll see how people pleasing and putting other people's needs in front of our own might have been shaped from those 2 different things. How do we avoid punishment? How do we receive love and approval and safety? So that's number 1, and doing the inner child work around it, doing the shadow work around it, meeting our own child's needs, getting to know what our inner child really felt and what they experienced growing up, and doing the work to become the inner parents that we needed, the adult that we needed, the adult that taught our inner child to set boundaries, and that it's safe to set boundaries. And our sense of self-worth isn't derived from what other people think of us, but it is derived from our own inner inherent self-worth that's already there, regardless of what other people do. And that we can learn from that space to create boundaries and say no in order for us to receive love in ways that are really healthy, and where we are honoring our own needs. And then also from that space of honoring our own needs, we're able to also honor others. So that's number 1, doing the inner child work, going into maybe a journal and start writing about these things. And then number 2 is to get to know our body's no's. From the example I used earlier with what happened the last couple of years, where I got to really know what my body's no was, and to stand by it, to learn to protect it by it didn't matter what was going on around me, that my body's no was the most important for me to listen to. And then in addition to that, what is my body's yes? What do I want to say yes to? Does this invitation or this thing that I'm being asked to do, does it feel like a yes? And does it feel like a no, right? And sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do, right? But it's just noticing what our bodies are responding to, how our bodies are responding to it. Because if our bodies are constantly saying no to something and we're ignoring it, likely it's a sign that maybe that's the thing that we don't necessarily want to continue doing over time. Maybe it's not sustainable to be in that job that constantly makes my body want to shut down and say no, but I'm constantly overriding it in order to do a good job, in order to make money, right? So just becoming aware of our body's no's and our body's yeses. And then number 3 is to create boundaries with other people and also our phone. One of my favorite boundaries is that I have days off a week from my phone, where I'm not available for messages from other people, where I'm not available in my social media, where I just take a break from my phone in general. And here it's so important to be very kind of clear with other people of when you're going to be available and when you're not going to be. And in addition to that, it's like being brave enough to talk to your tribe, your people, about when you're feeling overwhelmed maybe, and that you need space, that you're not going to be able to be there for them right now, and that you need time for yourself, and maybe you need some support as well. If you're the type that is more of a caretaker, like I certainly find myself in, a lot of the people that I work with as well, kind of the caretaker role is very, very common. And to just know that when we take care of our own energy and our own selves first and foremost, that's when we'll be able to be there for others in a way that's so much more nourishing and so much more healthy for them, and also most importantly for ourselves. Our energy comes first. And number 4, I believe, I can't really remember what it is at this moment, but it is this, I remember. So understanding that people pleasing, when we do it, we're not there to shame it. We're not there to make it wrong. We're not made to be like, oh, there it is again. Because that's just another part of us that's coming in that's maybe in conflict with our people pleaser. So if we go into parts work, for example, which I talk a lot about on this channel, we might have a people pleasing part of ourselves, and we might have an inner critic part of ourselves. And if they're kind of fighting against each other, that's not going to be good either. So if I notice that my people pleasing is coming up, I'm kind of morphing myself into being someone that in order for other people to like me, it doesn't help me to shame that part of myself. I'm like, oh, I did it again. Like, how could I? I thought I was past this. I thought I'd healed this. That's not part of it either. It's understanding that that's okay. Hey, this is a survival response. This is a coping mechanisms that I learned at a young age. And it was also very primal and tribal for me. And that's fine. I accept that part of myself. And now I can do different. Through my acceptance of that part and that pattern, I can change and I can shift into something else. So I hope that this was helpful. I know the video cut here a couple of times throughout. My batteries are just like dying all over the place, but I'm going to recharge, and I'm going to recharge myself as well. And as always, take care of your energy before other people. Put on your own oxygen mask before you put on the oxygen mask for other people. Yeah? I'm holding you to it. So good luck, and you got this. And I'm so grateful that you're here. If there's anything that you really resonated with, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, and take so much care.